So many wonderful, amazing questions about this. Copywriting for real estate investors, how to get paid $100,000 to write a single ad. Wouldn't that be great to write a single ad, a single letter, and get $100,000? How long should my sales letters be? We got a few heroes that are doing this writing stuff. We got this new writing thing we're coming up. We're going to talk about, not today, but the next class is going to be how to make an extra $2,000 a week, writing 500-word articles, how to work on your copywriting, how to work on stuff like one-sentence horror stories, and all really, really cool kinds of stuff, man, that we're working on. Our heroes are doing all kinds of stuff. Copywriting is a skill. I've got so many copywriting classes. You got to go through them. Check them out. Go to bigria.com. Awesome Mayo, rhymes with KO. Go to bigria.com, the number one site on the internet for everything under the sun. It's the world. We're building the world's largest organization of special needs business owners and real estate investors. We are creating the world's clearest instructions for how to get to how any human being can make a passive income of 30 grand a month. Copywriting is a really important skill. Our belief here, entrepreneurship, what's going to save the world? What does the world need now more than any other time is business, like, compassionate capitalism, as we talk about, creating entrepreneurship that's going to raise people up, create social mobility for yourself and others. Copywriting is a necessary skill for that. So how do you do this? How do you write something down and get paid $100,000 a year for writing a single ad? Can that really happen? We've talked, actually, I won't say can that happen. The question is, how do you do that? We're going to answer some questions based on that have come in from heroes. Go through my other stuff on copywriting. I believe that we have the most comprehensive for a real estate investor, like an iBuyHomes guy, to understand copywriting, starting from zero, understand the importance of it, what it means, what it is, putting down words and sending it to people and getting money in return, getting compliance, getting people to do stuff without you physically talking to them. That's what copywriting basically is. And that, if you have an email list, if you have a text list, you have to understand copywriting. And the better you are at that, the better you use your words, and the better people you use them with, and the better way you use them with, ad, dialogue, audience delivery, the more money you're going to make. The distance between you and 30 grand a month, 50, 120, 100 grand a month, 200 grand a month, whatever, 300 grand a month, the distance between you and doing that is simply what you're saying, the words coming out of your mouth, who you're saying it to, and how you're saying it. So today we're going to talk about this. Let's get into it. First, a few of the questions here. So if I'm starting from zero, how can I find good compliance assets besides you guys? How do I get them to keep paying me? How do I get people to keep, not very best language, how do I get them to keep paying me? We don't want to use that language, even after they see all the pieces. So if you're writing pieces, or if you give them an ad, they see the ad, how do you get a realtor to keep paying you $100,000 a year, or whatever your client is? In this case, we're talking about realtors. My client says that the ads and letters won't work on people. Our people are too smart for that, or they've seen everything, or this is a really competitive environment. This is what people say, and then they don't want to pay, or they'll go ahead and start changing things. It's a huge issue, and you need to learn how to deal with this stuff. So these are the main things we're going to cover today. How long should your sales letters be? I'll cover that. Do you have the answers on this right now? Okay, first, the first thing about making money here, the way we charge money on anything, whether it's a business or anything, we don't charge people money. We don't get paid. You want to move from the left side to the right side. Instead of being a liability, you want to be an asset. The difference between a liability and an asset when you look at a balance sheet is an ROI. The input doesn't matter. It's the output, the ROI. So it doesn't matter what they pay you. It's how much they get back. So the simplest answer with how do you get paid $100,000 to write an ad or something is that you want to get paid based on performance. And you want to be saying, for every dollar you're paying me, you're getting X amount of dollars in return, right? You're getting $2, $3, $4, $5, $10 in return. And that is what does that. So, and after they see, it's not important that they see an ad or they see a specific ad. It's more about the overall position you have and the ideas you're bringing to the table. So first we do what's called an MFM. If you're not familiar with this, you should go through our stuff. Manufactured franchise model. Basically, anytime a business is doing any kind of business, anytime they're having any kind of marketing, anytime they're having any kind of sustainable business, there's two things one of the things, whenever we look at a business, the first question we ask ourselves is, how are they getting the phone to ring? That's marketing. The second thing is, what do they do once the phone is ringing? That's how we move people through the 5 crowds. You should be familiar with that. How we get people from strangers to on their fan base, right? So that would be a compliance issue. Our issue when we talk about attract and ascend first is with the marketing. How do we get the phone to ring? So when we do an MFM, we can go to, let's say we have one realtor, we can go to other realtors in that area. One of the quickest ways to get pieces that convert is go to other realtors in similar areas, like in a sister city, and just tell them flat out what you're doing. I'm working with a realtor right now, and I'm just curious about what you're doing. Start interviewing other realtors. We've talked about how to position that conversation, the dialogue to use. I've talked about that in many other places. So Anna has a great class on this, on how to get these letters and then go door to door with these letters to the people that don't respond, or that get the piece from a realtor and then go get data, do basically a informal polling, and go talk to people who are your target and get a sense from them why they didn't call, or what would make that letter better, or whatever. Basically, you want to know if they read it, and you can have a lot of conversions as you do that. As you take a letter that you didn't hear back from someone on, and you ask them about it, and you can convert and get paid doing that. You get what I'm saying? Like, let's say a realtor sends out 1,000 letters, and you say, why don't I take a random 200 people that you wanted to reply but didn't, and let me just go door to door and just talk to them real quick and see what they thought of that letter. Great, I'll get a lot of great feedback, but also you'll convert some of those people that you'll be able to get paid on. So it's a cool way of converting people as well. I talked about this in the letter. It was like $9,000 a week with a letter. I actually gave you the exact letter, Copywriting for Real Estate Investors. Go to bigria.com. The amount of stuff we give away is unbelievable. So an MFM basically means it's the quickest way. You don't want to start, they say the worst thing to look at is a blank page with the menacing teeth, right? The most intimidating thing for any writer to look at, especially if you don't know what you're doing. If you're fresh, looking at a blank page, you got to have at least a template or something to look at. This is why we go with an MFM. Get an existing piece that some realtor or somebody's using with the idea that, I want to introduce this to this other realtor, this other investor, see if they have the similar results. And if they do, then I can obviously pay you for it. So you're taking brilliance, you're licensing it, right? You're going to rent brilliance at one price and rent it out at another price, arbitrage. But we can start with the MFM stuff. Just start that. This way you get pieces. Now, first thing is to do a GXM. This is the biggest reason why people fail at copywriting and really at anything. If you want someone to pay you $10,000 to write, a letter or something like that, why would they? The number one thing. So the top lesson for all copywriting, right? What is it? You should know this. If you've gone through any of my stuff, the number one mistake people make: not enough testimonials. Here's what we just had. Who was the? We have a story right now that's coming out where one of our clients is buying a bank. He's spending about $2.5 million of his own money. He asked me. He said, "Hey, how can I? I sent out this letter to some of his contacts, and it was like a not a great letter." And he was like, "I feel like it's a shitty letter." And I'm like, "Yeah, your feelings are you're right on this one. You're right. The letter's not great." But I said, "How about this? Instead of working on the letter, and he has quite a bit of money, so instead of going through the letter, and he's not going to learn the copywriting. I've known him for a long time. Why don't you do this? Here's the question you want to ask yourself: when you're sending this letter to people, when you're asking them to do something, right? First of all, he didn't really ask them very clearly, but here's the thing: every letter, every compliance, we have to gauge compliance. Compliance has a certain request, some hoop you want them to jump through, right? Everything has a call to action, something you want, right? Now, our question here is we want to take that thing and say, here's what happened when somebody else just like you did what I'm asking you to do, that took the action that I want you to take right now. Here's exactly what happened. That's the question we want to answer. How many people like that do you have? He had, a collection. He had a couple of people. We went through and we talked to, one of them I talked to for like 2 or 3 hours. It's a very wealthy woman who's now living in Romania, and a few other people that we talked to. A few of them were in Europe. A few of them were here in America. And we took these conversations and we crafted some really good letters based on that. And now we take the same letter he's sending, that same shitty letter, but we included with it these testimonials of other people, right? Because the question your target always says is, the question we should always answer for our target is, here's what I want you to do. Here's what happened for other people that did what I'm asking you to do right now. And hear me now. Before looking at any piece, you don't need to look at any copywriting piece. You don't need to, whenever I do copy critiques, the number one thing I say before I even look at it, I can already tell you which the top problem is: not enough testimonials. How many of you have? You put more. By the way, why do you think we have so many? I use so many all the time. We use them constantly. That's the same thing that you've got to do as well. By the way, thank you guys so much for the skin stuff. It is clearing up now. You haven't been looking at my skin. I thought she said it was bleeding earlier, but yeah, it's getting better. I appreciate the great thoughts, the high frequency thinking. Send it my way. I appreciate it. Give me your field, and I'll give it back to you with interest. Right? I'll be even stronger. The first thing we want to do is we want to have testimonials. If we don't have testimonials, you keep doing it. Just this one sentence will change your life. Okay? If you don't have enough testimonials, keep doing GXMs until you have enough testimonials. I'm going to say that again. If you don't have enough testimonials, keep doing GXMs, keep volunteering until you do have enough testimonials. You understand? If you do that, you're going to be ahead of every copywriter on the planet, basically. The reason why I was able to get copy when I would go into places, and what we look for is we don't want to write there's some videos people send me of these, like there's this whole new generation of like millennial, very young women that are very dressed up, and they're very, socially attractive, and they're always, they want to look really hot, and they're like dancing and, oh, hey guys, what's up y'all? And they've got these but then they give these copywriting tips. And when I first started seeing them, I kind of rolled my eyes like, oh my gosh. But then I listened to them, I'm like, my gosh, that's actually, they have studied copy. They know how to, what they're saying is accurate, but they're not making any money. Like they're like, it's like they're not really doing anything with it. And the problem they have is even people who understand how to write copy, which it's a very small group, by the way, but even people who understand that stuff, right? They don't understand that you got to convert it to equity. Don't just try to get clients that are going to pay you. Like when I said $2,000 a week for, right? That's only the beginning. We only want to do that to start with. What we got to convert that to is into equity. In this case of writing the banks, when he sent that letter out with his testimonials, he said he'll never have to use his own cash again. We're in the middle of doing a deal that's going to be, I think you guys are going for like a $10, $11 million. It's a bank plus a few other financial instruments that they're picking up right now. And she's getting equity. Our team is getting equity in that deal. So when we write that letter, eventually, yes, we want to grow that business, but eventually you want to do this with companies that you want to buy because you want to collect these companies like a kid collect baseball cards, right? That's what we need is the equity. So do a GXM. If nothing else, what you're doing is you're building your list of 77s. This right here, do an MFM to get pieces, do GXMs until you have testimonials, and if nothing else, you're building your 77s. Do those 3 things, you're going to be ahead of everyone. Doesn't matter what you do, whether you're in wholesaling or anything, or whether even if you're not in real estate, just do that. So what you'll have now is you have an ROI. You know if you spend X, you're going to get X plus whatever back, right? Now you can move with mathematical movement. First time you did that, we were doing so well. And then you said, oh, I don't know, I just get super paranoid. I was bleeding earlier. Ain't no thing though, guys. We're working through it. Lastly, the issue of position is crucial or you'll get blamed as the LC. This is super important. All that other stuff is really easy to cover, but this one thing is something that nobody covers. So that'll work. That'll never work on my people. They're too smart for that. That's, what do you do with that? So here's the thing. All of our, like I said, how long should an ad be? It's going to be that we talk about Avatar, Titanic, he was told again and again, no American audience is going to sit through a 3.5-hour movie. He said, they're going to sit through mine. Same thing when Avatar came out. He said, they're going to sit through mine. Because if it's good enough, don't worry about it being short. Don't worry about length. Worry about it being good. Worry about the story being good. That's the most important thing. How long should a good story be? How long should a good movie be? How long should a good song be? If it's good, you want it to never end. Focus on that. Make it good and it won't matter. The best wedding vow. Okay, so this is a story I've told before. A good friend of ours, a good friend of mine at least, now she's a good friend of ours, but she's somebody I went to high school with, and she was with a guy, and this guy was an idiot, but his family had a lot of money, and they were together, and they were going to get married. There's all kinds of weird stuff that was going on, but they had to get married. It was just, the thing is that now some people from my high school actually watch this stuff, so I got to be careful what I say, but everyone pretty much kind of has an idea of who I'm talking about, because this guy was not the sharpest tool in the shed. Did I say he was an idiot? I shouldn't have said that. He was just like, it was so obvious that his mother was like a trophy wife, and he got her good looks, and that's pretty much all he got, and he doesn't even want to do anything. He doesn't want to learn anything. So anyway, they're just sitting there, that's really like, they have this really nice estate. They've got all kinds of money, and they're getting married, and it's on the day of their wedding. And I knew him. I wasn't great friends with him though. I was much better friends with her. I was there because of her, not him. He didn't have any, like his friends were all kind of morons too. So they were sitting there, and he's like, hey, Oz, I want you to hear this. And he takes out his vows, because they had to write their own vows, right? So he's like, I wrote my vows here. I want you to check this out with me. And I'm like thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be great. He takes out his vows. He reads me the vows, and it was one sentence. And when he was done, I was like, oh my gosh, you cannot be serious. I didn't say that though. I was like, sarcastically, I was like, yeah, that's great. Thinking, obviously you're not done. Obviously that's a rough draft, right? So it gets up to the time of the wedding. We get there, and she's sitting there, and she read these vows, and she's like, ever since I met you, the universe, blah, 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 like really nice. We were meant for each other, and I can't wait to spend the rest of my life serving beside you. It was like really romantic and sweet and everything. And the whole time I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope you wrote more than you said me. Then he takes out this piece of paper, the same piece of paper. He unfolds it. I'm like, okay, he has to read it. That's a good sign. That means it's more than what he read to me. And I look over, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's still the same one sentence. Why did he have to take it out to read it? He takes it out. He's sitting there reading this. There's whole family, everyone. And he opens it up. He looks at her, and he says, let's say her name was Sarah. He's like, Sarah, I'm going to try really hard, and I hope I don't cheat on you. And then he folds it back up and puts it in. That's all he had to say. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she was like looking at him. And I remember under her breath, right in front of the period, it's like the whole, everyone was there. She's like, are you fucking serious? And he was like totally shocked. Like, well, that wasn't great. He was, God bless him, man. Bless his heart, man. He was just not the sharpest tool in the shed. But here's why I tell you that story. What does he do after that? He turns and says, Azam wrote it with me. What? I couldn't. Oh, she didn't talk to me for like 2 months. Here's my point. If you are not careful, that's what's going to happen. As soon as someone says, oh, that'll never work on my people, here's what will happen, especially with copywriting, especially with people who don't understand copywriting. Remember, there's 3 things that are important: dialogue, audience, delivery. Dialogue, what you say; audience, who you say it to; your delivery, how you say it. The first thing they're going to do, I remember I had one of my first clients did this, the dialogue. Oh, you know what? This letter's pretty long. Let me, me and my wife are going to go ahead and edit it. Or edit it, not edit it. Edit it. They're going to shorten it, basically, take it down to and then add a few things, blah, blah, blah. They're totally changing the dialogue. Now the audience, well, that list we're going to buy, if we usually buy lists on 3 things, right? Income, if we can get recent purchase history, right? Something that they bought something like what we have recently, that's one thing. But income and age. Age and income are 2 really good ones to use. But anytime you buy a list of income and age, and especially of recent purchases, that takes the cost of that list way up. So you know what? If I take out the recent purchases, the list is much cheaper. And you know what? If I take out the income and age, the list is really cheap. Well, yeah, because because you're basically mailing to the white pages at this point, right? But it's really cheap. So now you can send out 5 times as many. So he changes the dialogue, changes the audience, because we're not going to send it to the people we should. Now to the delivery. So instead of, do we really need to send this through, a handwritten letter? Can we just send it through? It's so much cheaper if we send it through bulk mail. So now it's going to be obvious that you're just sending this letter to, dear resident, basically the same thing everyone throws away. Now, after he does all those 3 of those things, there's nothing else to fuck up, right? The dialogue, audience, they ruin everything. What happens when we get no response? What does he say when he's sitting there with his brother and he's talking about it? What does he say? He turns to me, just like that guy did at the wedding. He's like, well, Azam did it with me. Now, what are you talking about? So this is what's going to happen to you. I promise you, this is exactly, people don't talk about this. You, especially when you start with clients, whether it's a GXM or not, they're going to start telling you once they see a piece, once they see who you should target. And even if you tell them, listen, based on your Facebook profile or based on your whatever, these are the people we should be targeting. Here's their age, demographics, whatever. And then they'll say, yeah, but that list is really expensive, or, that piece is really long, or, you know what? I don't know if we need to send it in a FedEx package. I don't know if we need to do that. Let me think about that. I don't know if we need to send a CD or we put 3D mail, lumpy mail. There's different names for it. Basically, you put something in that envelope so that I wrote about this in my copywriting class. There's a few copywriting classes I've talked about this, putting something in that envelope, right? But that costs extra money, and who's got the time for that, right? They don't want to do that stuff. So slowly they'll start changing what you're doing. And then when it fucks up, they're like, well, I did it your way. I did your idea. No, you didn't. You just want to rip their brains out. I was going to say balls off, but it could be a female. So, you could mutilate their genitals. What's wrong with me? I'm just saying you could hurt them no matter what, male or female. So the question is, how do you deal with that? Because especially if you don't know what you're doing, it's like, oh, well, what are you going to do? Well, here's the thing. Everything we do is an experiment, the Goodwill experiments model. So when I have a piece, I say, here's based on what I know, based on what we're told, here's how it should be used. Here's how this piece should be allocated. Now, here's the question. The number one, all these things I've talked about before in different places in the copywriting class, this thing we have not covered anywhere else. Right now, what I'm giving you is going to save your life, because here's what you do. What do you do the moment someone's like, yeah, that letter's pretty long. I think we should just cut out the last 3 pages or last 4 pages. And that list, I think we should just go ahead and send it to a different, what do you say at that moment? What do you say? Here's what you do. The first thing, we do the same thing, segment, experiment, and let them know about the failure. So if there's any variation, the moment someone suggests changing anything, whether it's changing the piece, changing who you mail it to, immediately, you want to draw a line in the sand, right? Not that it's a red line for you, but you want to say, okay, what you're saying is that instead of this, this, and this, you want to do this and this. Is that what you're saying? That you want to do an experiment on that? What have I done? First, I've drawn a line, I've segmented. Here's what I've recommended. Here's what the realtor that is making $50,000 a month recommended. Here's how he's using it, but you're saying that we should do this instead. Is that right? We segment it and we make a difference. And you want to outline exactly what the differences are that they're saying. That's the first thing you want to do. The second thing is an experiment. So you're saying that you want to try an experiment. First, we'll do it the right way, and then we also should try it the horseshit way, your way, basically, the way that you want to try it. Is that what you're saying? Because first I've segmented it, and then I give it a name. We'll call it an experiment. So we'll say we'll do it the right way, and then we'll do it the dickhead way. Or we'll try them both and see what happens at the same time. Is that what you're saying you want to do? I make it very clear that what you're suggesting is outside of what we were supposed to do initially. Because when we talked immediately, you want to get this piece and find out how this copy was allocated or whatever. You get what I'm saying? So if immediately, as soon as that happens, I draw a line. Okay, so what you're saying, I even physically would use to draw this out, is instead of these 3 things or these 5 things, you want to do these 3 things. Is that what you're saying? You want to do an experiment and test this against this? Oh, you're not even wanting to do an experiment. You're just saying, forget this. You just want to test this. Is that whatever they're saying, you want to isolate that. And the last thing you want to do, this is super important, is you want to make it clear. Okay, I just want to be clear. We're not doing what I recommended here. We're not doing what we set out to do. We've changed it and you want to do this. I don't think that is going to have the effect that we want. And here's why. Because we talk to the person, this is how they used it or whatever reason you have, you want to make it clear. It's really important you make it clear that this is something that's not what we recommended. If you want help doing that, that's okay. But here's why I think we're going to have, suboptimal results. It's important you understand that. The reason that's important is because later on, don't be like, oh, I should have said to him, for example, those are the shittiest files ever. I hope I don't cheat on you. What's wrong? But I didn't say that, right? I didn't make it clear, right? There's a few things we did. And if you don't do that, you're going to have problems. What do you keep looking at? Am I sweating? Is it not bleeding, right? Not bleeding stuff, right? Working on the skin stuff, you guys. Want to make sure that nothing ever gets weird or anything. It doesn't get too weird. We can take care of it. You're sure, right? Everything good? Okay. So what I'm saying to you guys is that you want to make sure you segment it, that it's clear that, listen, we're not doing what I recommended. I had a guy one time, one of my best examples. One of the things you want to do with your copy is that your copy, if you want to know how to write a good headline, just take the top 5 objections that your ideal clients have, the reason why they don't do business with you, the reason, what is holding them back. You should be able to voice those objections, and whether they voice them or not, enough conversations, they may not say it to you, but it's in their head, in their mind, right? Take the biggest 3, the biggest 5 ones that you have, right? The ones that are costing you the most amount amount of money and put that as a headline. Have a client say that I used to think this, right? Confess an attack. I used to think this, but now I realize I was being, a real dickhead because these guys can really take care of it and do a great job. You don't say that. Have a client say that. Some of the best ways to write testimonials is the headline should be an objection your target has, right? So I had a guy one time tell me, yeah, well, what if they're not thinking that? I don't want them to, put these ideas in their head. And I thought, man, what an interesting conversation we're having. But again, I segmented. Okay, so you're saying instead of having objections and having them answered with success stories, you're saying let's just not bring up the objections at all and hope that even if they're not saying them, that they're not even thinking about it. And he sat there and he's like, when you say it like that, I look like a real dumb fuck, don't I? And I said, this is a skill, what I'm talking about now. And as you get better at it, people will be like, wow, I really sound like a dickhead. I'm sorry. That's where you want to get to the place where it's like, look, okay, what you're saying, you had wanted me to help you get this, this, and this, but now you want to do all this dickhead stuff and you want to do an experiment where we try it the right way and then your way, or you just want to forget the right way and just do it. Is that what you're saying? Because, I put this much time into it. I want to help you win. I don't think this is going to do that, but for the sake of the relationship, I'll help you get it done, even though I don't see great results coming from it. You want to make it clear that you don't see great. By the way, what happens if it turns out great? Well, then you find a way to take credit for it. No, you go ahead and say, what? That was amazing. Here's why I thought it wouldn't. That's why you're not just saying, oh, that's not going to work. You're saying, look, based on what I'm saying, here are the top 3 reasons. And then you go back to the realtor, whoever you got the piece from, you say, hey, here's what we tested. Maybe we can test it again and try to recreate that. Now, normally that's not going to happen because the type of thinking that goes behind this is usually dickhead thinking. And usually dickhead thinking only comes up with brilliance on accident. And you're doing this on purpose. It's a very choreographed way of creating a predictable response. But that's how you deal with this copywriting issue. Okay, so let's talk about what we've covered now. We know how to get pieces, MFM. Check out my other classes on that copywriting. We've talked about the best quick way to write. The biggest problem all copy has, not enough testimonials. The biggest problem every business has, not enough testimonials. The biggest reason people don't have the compliance they want, not enough testimonials. I don't have testimonials, awesome, because I'm a piece of shit. Do GXMs until you have testimonials. You also build your 77s as well. The ROI, as soon as you have an ROI, everything becomes a money game. And that way, everything becomes just a numbers game, right? You're just trading checks, right? That way, the amount that you're getting paid has no attachment to reality at all because it's attached to, or it does have attachment to reality, but it has no attachment to their relative reality, right? It's all attached to how much they're getting. So they're spending X amount and getting back 2, 3, 4, 5 times that amount. You get what I'm saying? This is where your numbers want to be. This is where you want to be with all of your data, all of your activity. Everything that you're doing should be based on how much they're going to get back. So how do we go out and get $100,000 for an ad? We know that we're making them $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. What about after they get the piece? We're the ones who are making sure that the pieces get allocated into new markets and that we're getting better pieces. So whenever somebody works with you, they should feel like, oh my gosh, I got to keep this guy happy. And this is one of the ways we do that. We have so many other pieces. We have so many other ways of applying these pieces. And when you are obsessed, when you're really into what you're doing, people really want to be around you. Also, we're going to talk later in the next class or the other class about the copywriting, how to write these articles that also rank for SEO stuff. And we're having some great successes with that. And this is how people just want you to be around. It's like, I'm so glad you're working for me and that you're writing for me and that you're doing their stuff for them. It's really a really cool way. And then the issue of this is the big thing I want you to take away from today. How do you deal with somebody? You need to have stuff in your scripted responses to what to say. When people say this, I say this. When they do this, I do this. You know exactly what to do. And you do it in a way where they can come back and say, wow, I'm being a real dumb fuck. That's how you know you're getting it right. When your response, your predicted, policized, scripted, choreographed response creates a predictable result. That way, when people do dickhead stuff, they immediately realize, wow, I'm being a dickhead. And that's how you make friends and influence people, right? Okay, so that's copywriting for real estate investors. How to get paid $100,000 writing a single ad, single letter. We've talked about how to do that, but mainly it's the positioning stuff and how to make sure that you always win. I love you.